I have been waiting for so long to read this tweet. Okay, I bookmarked it. I haven't even liked it. Okay, my body is ready. My mind is ready. Breaking: MIT just completed the first brain scan study of ChatGPT users, and the results are terrifying. Turns out AI isn't making us more productive, it's making us cognitively bankrupt. Here's 4 months worth of data revealed. Hint, we've been measuring productivity all wrong. I mean, to be fair, something you could get more things done and use your brain less, right? Like that is a possibility. So, I mean, these two things can be actually true independently. Is measuring productivity wrong new? I'm not sure. Think smarter, not harder. I'm not sure if that exists either. If you don't use it, you lose it. Yeah, I know. So anyways, there's a lot of brain scanning going on. Normally, I'd open up the white paper, but I did actually end up opening up the white paper, Your Brain on ChatGPT. Your Brain on ChatGPT. I went and looked at the paper because I was like, oh, maybe we should just read this on the old where's it called? It's 206 pages. So I figured we couldn't sit down and read that in like a single run through. This one's it's a little hefty. Also, a lot of these papers, like I read the Microsoft paper. For those that are wondering, the Microsoft paper came out recently about how like ChatGPT is making us stupid or dumber. It was literally 90%. Telling you that it's about to tell you about how we're about to talk about how making you dumber is via ChatGPT possible. It's just like, it actually feels like high school paper time. So I'm not sure how good or bad this paper is. But anyways, all right. 83.3% of ChatGPT users could not quote from essays they wrote minutes earlier. Is this the part where everyone's just like, yeah, well, do you even need to know all that math if you don't have a calculator? I mean, if you have a calculator, why would you need to learn math either? Right? Is this one of those moments where we just make that argument and we're just okay with this red bar? That is kind of crazy to think that you could write an essay. It doesn't say how many minutes passed. I would like to know how many minutes passed. Yeah, because he's saying wrote minutes earlier. I'm not quite positive. An essay that you wrote minutes earlier, like what's the essay on, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, it's not their essay. Yeah. But either way, let's just pretend they had the right. And an essay. What is an essay? Is it a multi-page essay? Are they supposed to write 500 words on something? Is it just write something small about a specific topic? This is obviously not really defined in this tweet. And again, I'm not going to spend the next hour going through this trying to figure out where these two things come from. Maybe here, let's see if we can just do a little quick search for this one. Percentage of participants. Ability to code. Quoting accuracy was significantly different across experimental conditions. In the LLM-assisted group, 83.3% of participants failed to provide correct quotation. Let's see, is there like a... Okay, here we go. Post-assessment interview. Okay, so this could be good. Following task completion, participants were asked to discuss the task and their approaches towards addressing the task. Questions included, slightly adjusted for each group. Why did you choose the essay for your topic? Did you follow any structure to write it? Okay, cool. So it's like some basic, hey, here's what we're doing, LLM versus search engine. How did you use ChatGPT/the internet? Okay, cool. Are you satisfied with your essay? Oh, interesting. For session 4, there were an additional quotes. Do you remember this essay topic? If yes, do you remember? Dude, it would be insane, by the way. Okay, can we all agree that if you're like, hey, you just got done writing an essay, do you remember what you wrote the essay on? And if someone's like, that's crazy, okay? That's actually nuts. I mean, peak productivity, though. Again, that's one of those problems with productivity. If we only value the output purely, then it's hard to call this wrong, right? Like, should you take up valuable brain space? We'll call it valuable. I'm not sure how valuable it is if you could write an essay and not remember anything, but let's just call it valuable for the sake of calling it valuable. Should you spend cycles on things that don't matter? Well, now you're going to probably make a lot of arguments. Like maybe this is like the whole, like, now we're getting into the realm of philosophical arguments about are there things you do that don't matter? Or are you just kind of baiting yourself into calling things you don't matter, or things you perceive as not being meaningful as actually having or not having meaning or value to your life, all that kind of stuff. Anyways, these interviews were conducted as conversations. They followed question template and audio was recorded. Here are the reports of the results for each question. We first presented responses to questions for each session, 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, 3 and concluding in summary for these 3 sessions before presenting responses for session 4. And then summarizing the responses for the subgroup participants who participated in all 4 sessions. Question 1, choice of specific topic essay. Most participants in each group chose topics that resonated with personal experiences or reflections, and the rest of the participants, regardless of group, picked topics they found easy, familiar, interesting, as well as relevant to the study and context. Okay, that makes sense. I mean, that seems good. Adherence to essay structure. 14 out of 18. By the way, 14, I get that you're doing like brain scanning and you're doing a whole bunch of stuff, so obviously the amount of people you can have in this list is probably relatively small, but to be also fair, if this is the number of people, if this is N, this is not necessarily a very large sample size. Like, I know that there's always going to be like a financial or time-based consideration to these studies, and that means you just kind of have to take some things with a grain of salt. I am N shaming. That's true. Don't N shame. I'm N shaming. If this is your N's pretty small. Statistically speaking, it's very small. Okay, this is a micro N. Small sample size, but 83% versus 11 is a huge deviation. True. But you still have a large possibility of just like a biased group by accident. And so I think that I'm not really sure about how much you can grab of this, but it is interesting that it is that large. All right, so quoting accuracy was significantly different across experimental conditions. In the LLM-assisted group, 83.3% of participants, 15 out of 18, failed to provide a correct quotation, whereas only 11.1%, 2 out of 18, in both the search engine and brain-only groups encountered the same difficulty. That's because, to be completely fair, search engines are a fundamentally different skill. You have to go, you have to look, you have to read, you have to synthesize, you then have to the synthesized data that you're bringing, you have to then restate and put it onto paper.
In-shame, micro, and soft.
Which is a very different experience than ChatGPT. ChatGPT, you do not have to synthesize. It synthesizes for you. You don't have to search through a larger body of text to reduce down to the fundamental parts to only grab the things you want. This should be obvious. To me, this seems pretty obvious. If you let something do the work to you, I think this actually speaks volumes. Has anyone here, I'm sure, how many people have tried to do some level of vibe coding? Type 1 in chat if you've done at least a decent amount of vibe coding. Yeah, N is 54, 18 per group, right? Some amount of vibe coding. Okay, so we got a lot of ones in chat. This is good. This is kind of what I wanted to see. All right, I'm going to do a little quick follow-up. Of the ones in chat, type 69 in the chat if after doing the vibe coding, you found yourself resistant to wanting to learn what happened so that you could fix specific problems you couldn't prompt your way out of. I find that to be like a big thing where when I vibe code, I have a resistance to learn it, right? I have this thing where I start vibe coding, it produces hundreds of lines of code, if not thousands. And then I have this resistance where it's just like, I don't want to have to go through the whole thing and learn it and then restructure it because I know I'm going to be angry about the entire thing. Like, I'm going to have to go through, I'm going to see all of it, and I'm just going to literally rewrite it. I already know that the moment I look at it, I'm going to go, no, this is what we're doing. And so it's just like I have this internal resistance to even like put in the effort to learn once I've used ChatGPT. Vibe coding is doing nothing but reading someone else's code, the least fun part, yeah. But I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about this idea that I feel like I kind of understand this. Like if I were to write an essay and I use ChatGPT, there's part of me that just doesn't want to have to go through and read everything and then go, oh, I don't like how it's structured. I don't like how it's said. I don't want to have to rewrite everything. So it's like almost easier just to be like, okay, I'm going to accept this as being good enough. And it's just like in a code review, just like in an LLM code review, you see a diff, and you're like, well, I don't understand the surroundings of it all because it's all been vibe coded as it is. I'm looking at the code and yeah, sure, that could work. I mean, it does what I think it's doing. All right, go for it. I'm going to test it anyways. And you just don't actually really understand it. So if I were to vibe code and I looked at every single diff and looked at every part of it, and then someone asked me, hey, where is, or kind of explain to me how the exact data flow works for this part of your program, I could literally probably say none. Like, I think I'd fall into this exact same category of 83%. I'd be like, I don't actually know. I have no idea. Anyways, very interesting. I think this is very interesting. I'd love to see a slightly larger sample size, even though this is at least a good indicator. What I would say is that this is probably directionally correct. I'm just curious as to what extent is this as the population gets larger. Because obviously if there's 18 people here, 18 people here, 18 people here, and the two sets of 18 are just so much lower versus the one set of 18, maybe the one set of 18 does go down. Maybe it goes into the 70s or into the 60s. And maybe these groups, they go up. Maybe they go all the way up into the 20s. There's still like a ton of distance here. Right? It's kind of interesting. Anyways, brain scans revealed the damage. Neural connections collapsed from 79 to 42. I don't actually know what that means. That's a 47% reduction in brain connectivity. I don't know what that means, unless if what they're trying to say is, let's go look up this part. Maybe what it's actually saying is that, I assume that it's scanning for brain activity. The brain activity is significantly reduced, which, again, I think that generally should be obvious that your brain activity should be reduced. Our findings offer an interesting glimpse. By the way, this is one of the reasons why I hate reading papers. Is like phrases like this. There's just so much in papers that is like fluff words. You don't have to say your findings offer an interesting glimpse into how this thing's happened. You can just say LLMs versus this engage the brain. Like, just say the thing. Stop putting words around it that just take up space. They don't actually offer anything. Our findings offer an interesting glimpse is how I should feel about what I'm reading. It should not be what you tell me about what I'm reading. Anyways, that's just me getting angry due to the whole writing YouTube videos and all that. Okay. Let's see. Our findings offer an interesting glimpse into how LLM-assisted versus unassisted writing engages the brain differently. In summary, writing an essay without assistance, brain-only group led to stronger neural connectivity across all frequency bands measured, with particularly large increase in the theta and high alpha bands. Dude, you're telling me you turn into an alpha male? Okay. Everybody, using ChatGPT means you become less of an alpha, okay? This indicates that the participants in the brain-only group had a heavily engaged. Oh my goodness! In the brain, I'm not using this is a non-brain-only group going on right now. Participants in the brain-only group had to heavily engage their own cognitive resources, frontal executive regions, orchestrated more widespread communication with other cortical areas, especially in the theta band, to meet the high working memory and planning demands of formulating their essays from scratch. The elevated theta connectivity centered on frontal to posterior directions often represents increased cognitive load and executive control. Okay, very interesting. Is there like a graph? Do we get to see any graphs on this one? What's a really, I guess would be a more curious question to ask is not, okay, yeah, in this moment, people who did stuff with their head were more engaged. But I'm also curious what this means for long-term output, meaning if you're more engaged, does that put you into the flow easier? Now, I'm not, I think there's definitely something to that flow and ability to write something that's larger definitely has, there's definitely something there about being like in the weeds and doing it that just kind of helps propel you. I often find that when I don't want to work on a side project, if I can just force myself for the first 10 minutes, I start getting into this kind of like flow. And then I'm like, okay, I'm in. I want to keep doing this. I want to go faster. I want to go harder. I want to keep on going. You know what I mean? There's like something to it that is, I don't know, different. And so I'm curious about that, but I'm also curious just long-term for just like people's ability to solve hard problems. One of the big things that make us really good as software engineers isn't the fact that we know syntax, right? Syntax is really not a skill. It's rote memory, right? It's just the ability to memorize a new alphabet and in what order it needs to be placed. I don't think there's actually anything that's like super impressive about knowing different language syntaxes. Syntaxes? Is that more than one syntax? I'm not sure. Anyways, the thing that makes us so valuable is our ability to apply the syntax with experience to solve a problem in a way that doesn't just solve the problem, but makes it easier or at least self-contained if things were to change in the future. And so if you never develop that skill or even that pathway in your brain, what happens to the rest of your life? Like, what happens to people that never have to, like, walk that path in their brain of having to take a bunch of pieces and unknowingly have to experiment to create that? Do you kind of create learned helplessness? Are we going to have an entire generation of people that just don't know how to think for themselves, that you just have to tell them what to do? Dementia, most likely. I wonder real talk. I wonder what weird problems are going to arise from all of this. Not in a mean way. Well, Jarheads, no, even Jarheads, is saying Jarheads is kind of an insult because there's a lot of things they have to do. Accepting orders and following orders is different than not thinking. Right? Those are two different activities. Are we not already experiencing that? Well, we're only in the very beginning of it, right? We're in the very, very beginning of it, right? There is this concept, for those that don't know this concept of learned helplessness, by the way, I love this graph. This is how I feel about Super Maven. But here, for those that don't understand what learned helplessness is, here's like a really easy way to look at it. There's this experiment that was done. I think they used dogs, or they had a training of dogs that were... that said that they couldn't leave these cages, and they did something to them. I can't remember the exact experiment precisely, but over time they lowered the walls of these cages to the point where the cages were like 6 inches high, and the dogs couldn't leave the cages, even though they were significantly larger, because this hurdle had been so built into their head that this is like an impossible problem to solve. 6 inches, that's a lot. I mean, I know a lot of people think 6 inches is impressive, but when it comes to a cage, it's not. And so they were not they were not dogs. Dogs, I can't remember exactly what the study was, but I remember that's like the general, that is like an elephant that has been caged their whole life. They're strong enough to pull the stake out of the ground, but they don't because that is their life. I've heard something like this as well, where it's like you barely have to stake them at all, and they were just like, oh, I can't pull that out. That's impossible. Anyways, there's something interesting about this. Like, what does that do to you long term? And I obviously don't know this answer. This is just me more just kind of thinking through, or at least like pontificating on this idea that if you don't solve things yourself and you don't learn how to do it, there will be like almost like something that's kind of scary. Like, for those that don't ever do this, I've had this resistance a long time ago in my life, where when something would break, like say my toilet would break, there would be like this thing where it's just like, ugh, I don't know how to do this. I don't want to do this. I can't do this. But really, it's like, it's not even that hard. Most of the toilet stuff that you ever do to fix is actually relatively simple. You know what I mean? It's not even that hard. And once you start doing it, that weird, like, I'm not sure if it's like fear or what it is, but it kind of goes away, because it's actually really simple what's happening. And you're like, okay, yeah, I could fix most of the stuff. I don't want to, but we could. All right, there's like this unironically nice toilet. Thank you. I'm actually pretty proud of drawing that toilet. That's an insanely good drawing of a toilet. What the F? Yeah, I'm okay at drawing things. You know, like, there's this thing that you have. You build up these barriers in your head, and then the barriers become like these impossible things to go through. Like, for me, the big barrier for me when I was in school was ternary syntax. It's incredibly easy, but I saw it used once, and I was just like, holy cow, that looks confusing, when I was just first starting out. I can't remember. Maybe it was like day 2 of me learning how to program. I saw it. I got confused. I wasn't sure how to do stuff in here. And so I said, okay, this seems really hard. And then for the next year, I never learned ternaries, because I was like, oh, those are really hard. And I built this like dumb barrier in my head that never needed to exist. I just had a barrier in my brain, and I said, oh, I can't do that. That's hard. But it's truly not hard. And then all of a sudden, I tried. I was like, okay, I should probably learn these. I looked at it for like 1 second and realized how stupid I was. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I ever thought those were hard, right? I cannot believe a ternary statement I thought was hard. But that's because I developed this, I developed truly learned helplessness. I developed a barrier that just prevented me from understanding. And so now I mean, this right here, if you constantly are offloading that ability to actually orchestrate and synthesize data and turn it into something, I wonder if it will become your ternary. Is critical thinking a ternary for people? Anyways, I'm just thinking through these kind of problems. Teachers didn't know which essays used AI, but they could feel something was wrong. Soulless, empty with regard to content, close to perfect language while failing to give personal insights. The human brain can detect cognitive debt even when they can't name it. Here is a quote from two English teachers who evaluated the essays on how they went, and how they went about their evaluations. Some essays across all topics stood out. Okay, hold on. Oh, I love that. By the way, I love that. Some essays across all topics stood out because of a close to perfect use of language. Oh, that's so interesting. And the structure, while simultaneously failing to give personal insights or clear statements. Oh my gosh, this is such a beautiful way to say this. This is like such a great, like, there's something about it that you can see it even when you're looking at like posts that are written by AIs. You start reading them and you're just like, what the hell am I reading? What the hell is happening here? These often lengthy essays included standard ideas, reoccurring typical formulations, and statements which made the use of AI in the writing process rather obvious. We, as English teachers, perceived these essays as soulless in a way, as many sentences were empty with regard to content and essays lacked personal nuances. While the essays sounded academic and often developed a topic more in depth than others, we valued individuality and creativity over object perfection. This is reflected in lower content and uniqueness scores, while language, structure, and accuracy are rated higher. However, some of these obviously AI-generated essays did offer unique approaches, e.g. examples or quotes, which then led to higher uniqueness scores, even if structure and language lacked uniqueness. Interesting. I think we all kind of inherently understand this. Like, how many of you guys read articles these days, and there's just something about the article that's super bothersome? Right, there's just something about the articles that you read, and you're just like, what is this? It just feels like you're saying a lot of things, but you're not saying a lot of things. Yeah, AI can't trick our monkey brains yet. Maybe at some point, they trick our brain. I did squats this morning. Read articles. Yeah, they're getting better though. Of course, they're getting really, really good, right? Similarly, AI generated videos and images still feel. There's something about it that just feels weird. You know what I mean? But I do want to say something that I'm not saying, by the way, that I don't think AIs will get good enough to sound good, like just sound, or maybe AIs won't get bad enough to sound like humans, or that I don't get tricked by AIs. I'm not somebody who thinks I got like 9,000 IQ and I'm like, oh, I'll never get tricked by an AI because I can always tell the soullessness. No, I definitely have been tricked by it, I'm sure, several times. That is not what I'm saying. It's just that there is definitely maybe the word clinical is a little bit better. There's just this weirdness that I often run into that I dislike, and I know that comes from an AI because that just doesn't come from humans. Humans aren't that good and that bad at the exact same time. It's just weird. Anyways, all right. I just don't like it. You know, here's the terrifying part. When researchers forced ChatGPT users to write without AI, they performed worse than people who never used AI at all. It's not just dependency. It's cognitive atrophy, like muscles that had forgotten how to work. Oh, yeah. I mean, you could definitely see that in this should be pretty obvious. Like, anyone here who has foregone writing UIs because now ChatGPT can just spit out Tailwind and all those things and make it look effectively as good as possible, and you use something like V0 to do that, and you've done that for long enough, all of a sudden you find yourself unable to rip stuff out at the same rate that you used to. I think that's pretty straightforward. Right, like we can all see this. This is obvious, but this is also obvious if you've just not done something for a long time. Like, if you just haven't done something for a long time, like if I were to go back to Rust right now, I used to be pretty dang good at Rust. If I were to start right now, I think I'd find my ability to write Rust to be significantly down. The MIT team used EEG brain scans on 54 participants for 4 months. They tracked alpha waves, creative processing, beta waves, active thinking, and neural connectivity patterns. This isn't opinion; it's measurable brain damage from AI overuse. All right, let's go back to this our findings business. Let's see if we can see that let's see, glimpse. Let's see if that I can go straight there. Nice, that worked. All right. I wanted to look at this because this looks interesting, right? Okay, because this is kind of these are all the brain parts. All right, The EEG results, LLM groups versus brain-only groups. Let's see, alpha band connectivity. The most pronounced difference emerged in alpha band connectivity with the brain-only group showing significantly stronger semantic processing networks. The critical connection from left perennial P7 to right temporal T8 regions demonstrated highly significant group differences. Look at that p-value. That's a statistically significant p-value. Dude, down to think. What does DTF mean in this one? The delta, the differential DTF, dude. Differential DTFing is a crazy term. That's a crazy term right there. Let's see, a brain-only group, LLM group. Okay, unfortunately, I don't know what differential DTFing is. This P7 to T8 pathway was complemented by enhancing connectivity from the parieto-occipital regions to anterior frontal areas. Okay, cool. These are all things I don't even know what they mean. So this is where I clearly don't have any idea what is being said here. Brain-only group has demonstrated stronger occipital to frontal informational flows. Brain-only group, let's see. The total significant connectivity for the brain-only group was equal to 79 connections compared to only 42 connections with the LLM group. Okay, that I can understand. Less shit happening in your brain, probably not good. Unless if you're on acid, then a lot of things happen. I mean, you got a lot of connections going on. Alpha band connectivity is often associated with internal attention and semantic processing during creative ideation. The higher alpha connectivity in the brain only group suggests that writing without assistance most likely induced greater internal driven processing, consistent with the idea that these participants had to generate and combine ideas from memory without external cues. In fact, creativity research shows that alpha connectivity, especially in the upper alpha, increased with internal semantic research and creative demand at frontal and parietal sites. Brain-only groups evaluated frontoparietal alpha connectivity aligns with the findings. Their brain likely engaged in more internal brainstorming and semantic retrieval. The LLM group, taking into the account that LLM suggestions may have relied less on purely internal semantic generation, leading to lower alpha connectivity because some creative burden was offloaded to the tool. I think what you can easily say, I think I understand what it's attempting to say, but would it be easier to say the following, that this is like pure anchor biasing? Is that what this is all saying? Is this is just anchor biasing in the sense that people who use the LLMs, they're given a set of ideas and then they work within this constrained group, as opposed to the people not given any access and have to write are allowed to kind of free think their way into whatever direction they want, so they don't have as many bounds given to us? I don't know. Obviously, these pictures, I have no idea. Like, I'm looking at the LLM one, I'm looking at this one, and I'm just like, what? I mean, there's definitely less green lines. Look at the green lines in this one. There's a lot of green lines here. There's like not a lot of green lines here, okay? Not a lot of green. Lot of green in this one. Not a lot of green over in this one. Looks like a brain. Kind of looks like a brain, honestly. A lot of p-values, okay. Oh, okay, so green is like mid-percentage? All right. The dynamic direct transfer function. Oh, that's what DTF stands for alpha band between LLM and brain groups. Only for sessions 1, 2, 3, excluding 4. Rows 1, and 2. Brain groups show that DTF for all pairs of 32 electrodes. 1,024 in total. Blue is the lowest differential DTF value. Dynamic DTF value. Red is the highest dynamic DTF value. Third row P values show only significant pairs, where red ones are the most significant and blue ones are the least significant, but still a threshold of 0.5. The last two rows show only significant DTF values filtered using the third row P
values. How do I
values.
increase my P size?
No one knows how to increase. You don't want to increase. You actually want to make it smaller. Okay, interesting. Oh, that makes these brain groups way more interesting. So blue means you're not engaging your brain. Okay. When you look at the LLM side, there's a lot of blue. There is a lot of blue going on hard here. When you look at this one, there's a lot more green, and it's all coming from the CP2 side. Notice the CP2 side either is dormant or shooting out a bunch of blue, and this one is not nearly as dormant looking. And there's a lot of green exploding. I'm sorry, Prime, but we can't act like we know what this means. Yes, we can act like a small amount. They're saying that, I mean, we can, okay, bro, you need to quit reading LLM stuff, and you need to think for yourself. Blue means not using. Red means using. This is for the alpha bands. I don't know what alpha bands have to do other than apparently they're related to creativity. Okay, so that means you're not using a lot of creativity. This means you're using a lot of, there's a lot of transfer with the alpha waves, and so there's just a lot more green, which means there's a mid-level amount of exertion going on. Prime examples of learned helplessness. Hold on. Prime examples of learned helplessness in chat. Not even trying to understand. Yeah, I feel like I'm trying to understand, and I feel like I'm actually getting somewhere with this. Like, I'm like, oh, okay, this makes sense. You can actually kind of see it, which is pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting, this right here, or at least these two. They're just, because I made that original observation. I'm like, this is much more green than this one, but we had no idea what it was. I'm just curious what the long-term results are going to be. All right, let's look at the next one. What is beta band? What are these beta boys doing? Beta band analysis reveals contrasting patterns between low and high beta frequencies. In low beta, brain-only groups maintain slight superiority. Total connectivity, okay, with particularly strong temporal to frontal connections. All right. However, high beta showed a more balanced connectivity patterns with the LLM group, demonstrating stronger cognitive control networks. Oh, interesting. Within the right hemisphere, the brain-only group also tended towards stronger frontal to temporal brain beta connectivity. The LLM group did not show an increase in any beta connections relative to the brain-only group. Maybe I should use LLMs. I don't want to be a beta group. Maybe it's better to be a non-beta group here. Rather, all major beta bands connections were either stronger in the brain-only group or similar. Okay, so maybe there's not a big difference in the beta group, but what does beta do? Beta band connectivity is often linked with active cognitive processing, focused attention, and sensory motor integration. Okay, so reading. I assume that's what this is doing right here, is you reading and processing information. Is this like is what they're trying to say is this is kind of like the basic form? This is just computational processing? Is that what this is? This is beta bands? Is that what it's trying to say? That's what it kind of says, because it sounds like alpha is the creativity, the what do you call it? The epiphany side of things. Beta is like the raw processing side of things. Like, I will read now. My beta bands right now are probably going wild. This is just me. This is raw processing power. That's kind of how I'm currently reading it. The higher beta cognitivity in the brain-only group likely reflects their sustained cognitive and motor engagement in composing their essays without external tools. Writing without a tool meant the brain-only group had to continuously generate text and maintain their plan, which engaged executive functions and possibly the motor planning for typing. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Okay, so beta's also in with the motor skills of typing. Very interesting. You know what would be really cool to see is measuring beta band stuff for people who know how to type and people who don't know how to type, and doing some sort of like programming assessment to be like, what does their brain do when solving a problem? Like, does your brain actually oscillate between going heavy into this beta motor skill thing versus I would assume the alpha creativity side? Like, do you spend more time in beta or alpha? I don't know. Prime goes big beta on typing. Dude, I go big beta on typing. We all know that. Okay. Again, this looks like the same image. It's hard for me to tell other than the side, and it even looks like the same side with the strong things are all coming from this. Why is everything really strong from the CP1 side? I don't know what that is. Very interesting. Very green on brain only. Very blue on LLM. Very green on brain. So this is the direct transfer function for beta band between LLM and brain groups. Okay. So it's the exact same thing going on here. There's just more shit going on. Is that what that means? More shit going on. As far as the article goes here, I'll go for the article. There's like two of them we're doing right here. Right, so it's going to be edit, article, this. Let's see. Paper. Twitter. Dude, my brain activity is so crazy. All right, the productivity paradox. I'm actually pretty excited about this one right here. The productivity paradox nobody talks about. Yes, ChatGPT makes you 60% faster at completing tasks, but it reduces the germane cognitive load needed for actual learning by 32%. Okay, is there a definition for what a germane cognitive load is? I don't know what that means. I assume this is from the paper. Dude, look at the token rate. Anytime I see things go slow, I'm like, that's token rate. That must be my computer. Is this my computer on page 48? The germane cognitive load refers to the mental effort that is effectively used for learning and schema construction. It is brain power dedicated to understanding new information, integrating it with existing knowledge, and building lasting mental models. Essentially, it's the good kind of cognitive load that leads to deeper learning and improved performance. Okay, very cool. Now, does this thing, okay, so I want to see it. Oh my goodness. Dude, what is this? I like how when I scroll away, when I scroll, it comes in faster. Do you like that? When I go like this, but then when I start scrolling, it starts coming in faster. Go faster, go faster. Don't let me look at you. Cognitive load theory allows us to better understand how LLMs affect learning outcomes. LLMs have been shown to reduce cognitive load across all types, facilitating easier comprehension and information retrieval compared to traditional methods like web searches. Wait, hold on. Let me say that again. Let's see. Hold on. Cognitive load theory allows us to better understand how LLMs affect learning outcomes. Okay. LLMs have been shown to reduce cognitive load across all types, facilitating easier comprehension and information retrieval compared to traditional methods like web searches. Okay, are they saying, okay, hold on. Are they saying it's easier to find the information or it's easier for us humans to memorize using LLMs? Because this seems like it would defeat the point that the rest of the paper is saying. So that can't be what it's saying, right? I must be misreading this. What they're saying is it's easier for people to locate the information they're looking for using an external tool comparatively to web searches, which is, it's feeding you answers directly. Okay. LM users experience a 32% lower cognitive load compared to software-only users, those who relied on traditional software interfaces to complete the task, with significant reduced frustration and effort when finding information. More specifically, given the three types of cognitive load, students using LLMs encountered the largest difference in germane cognitive load. LLMs streamline the information presentation and synthesized process, thus reducing the need for active integration of information and, in turn, a decrease in cognitive effort required to construct mental schemas. So is that good or bad? I mean, because when I read that, there's part of me that goes, okay, this is good in the sense that you can build a mental model easier with less effort. Well, less effort equals less learning. I'm not sure if that's true. That's not what it's saying, it doesn't seem like. What it's saying is that they're able to effectively get the information they need. There's a streamlined process that synthesizes data more directly. So they don't have to use as much effort to effectively learn. I guess my only counter argument to that is that learning isn't simply just remaining on home plate, right? A lot of learning comes from rounding the bases, going off track. The immediate answer or the direct answer isn't always great. For anyone that's read the docs, like if you've ever gone through and just started reading docs in linear order, you'll discover things, right? You'll be able to put away things that aren't related to your goal, and you'll be able to kind of categorize them and go, okay, hey, remember, there's that one function here. And then you go back and you continue on your quest to learn whatever you're learning. And then as things inevitably come up and as new problems come up, you have perhaps a larger bank of things to understand or a larger bank to recall on or to rely on because you side quested more. So I could understand what they're trying to say, which is if the only thing you're measuring is the outcome of learning a specific thing, right? Then this can show that you can do it faster. But is that the only thing that's worth it? Is it good only to learn the exact thing, or is there something better about taking a bit of a side quest? So I'm not sure if that's what they're saying or not. I'm just alpha waving right now, okay, bros? Bros, I'm alpha waving hard right now because I'm an alpha male, okay? That's what we do around here. But remember how this works. Many times you have learned something easily and forgot it 2 days later, and stuff that took you 7 months to figure out, and you can recite it perfectly. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I still understand a lot of data structures and algorithms and still can. Dude, in a pinch, I could, in a matter of minutes, if you were like, Prime, I need you to compare two binary trees and tell me if they're equal or not, both in structure and in value. Dude, I could do that so quickly. I could do it because it's so ingrained into my brain. I don't need an LLM to tell me the answer. I can just do that. I can tell you why you wouldn't want to choose something like breadth first search and why you'd want to choose depth first search, because I've so side quested so hard that I just know this answer. I just know this answer internally with absolutely no effort. It's very, very simple. Compare two binary trees and tell me if they're equal in structure and in value. Very, very easy. Turn it into a doubly linked list. Your mom's a doubly linked list. No, it's actually very, very simple. Okay, it's structure. Okay, page 138 where they mention learning. I'll go there just since we're side questing here for a little bit. 138. There we go. Give it a little bit of scrolly for faster loading. Scrolly for faster loading. Scrolly for faster loading. This is 138. I'm going to trust you. Dude, normally I don't trust chatters to give me good moments, but let's just see what happens. All right, essay ownership and cognitive agency. Another nuanced behavior dimensions was the participants' perception of essay ownership. While brain-only group claimed full ownership of their text almost unanimously, 16 out of 18 in session 1, rising to 17 out of 18 by session 3, LLM group presented a fragmented and conflicted sense of authorship. Some participants claimed full I'm not really sure what this has to do. I feel like I'm being bamboozled right now. But it's interesting. Some participants claimed full ownership, others explicitly denied it, and many assigned partial credit to themselves. The responses suggested a diminished sense of cognitive agency. From a neural standpoint, this aligns with the reduced convergence on anterior frontal regions, which are involved in error monitoring and self-evaluation. In the LLM group, the delegation of content generation to external systems appears to have disrupted these metacognitive loops, resulting in a psychological disassociation from the written output. Oh, this is actually super interesting. I know we've totally side quested potentially to be in the wrong area, but this is. I realize that the learning outcomes are right here. I totally missed that, but this is super interesting. There's a explicit lack of connection between what you have effectively produced versus ownership of what you've produced. This is literally the story of Wall-E. It does sound like the story of Wall-E. It actually really does sound like the story of Wall-E. It's actually kind of freaking me out just a little bit. Okay. What is ownership? Well, like responsibility? No, as in, because remember, right now we're talking about people who are producing essays during several sessions with their brains getting scanned from brain-only, search engines, and LLMs. 18 people in each group. In the brain-only region, they're pretty much claiming that they are developing everything themselves. They feel very confident in what they're developing. They're like, this is mine, this is my ownership. I feel very good about what I am producing, or maybe they're proud of it. I'm not exactly sure what their exact internal feeling, because it doesn't really talk about that. But they're saying that the LLM group doesn't feel like they're that they're really the author of it. They don't really have ownership over it. They're kind of more like mediator of its production, which I think makes sense, right? They don't write it. They didn't come up with a lot of the ideas. They didn't come up with a lot of it. They're simply being a mediator. They're really just being an arbiter between the LLM to the output. So I think that makes sense. Okay, cognitive load, learning outcomes, and design implications. Taken together, the behavioral data revealed that higher levels of neural connectivity and internal content generation in brain-only group correlated with stronger memory, greater semantic accuracy, and firmer ownership of written work. Brain-only group, though under greater cognitive load, demonstrated deeper learning outcomes and stronger identity with their output. The search engine group displayed moderate internalization, like balancing effort with outcome. The LLM group, while benefiting from tool efficiency, showed weaker memory traces, reduced self-monitoring, and fragmented authorship. This trade-off highlights an important educational concern. AI tools, while valuable for supporting performance, may unintentionally hinder deep cognitive processing, retention, and authentic engagement with written material. If users rely heavily on AI tools, they may achieve superficial fluency but fail to internalize the knowledge or feel a sense of ownership over it. Again, I feel like we've all kind of identified this problem. Well, I'm gonna say the same problem, but I'm gonna say it slightly different. Who here has at least said or thought about or made some sort of a claim about who are going to be the seniors in 10 years? Right? Like, that's a big thing. We're not hiring juniors. Well, who are going to be the juniors that step into the senior roles? Like, that's kind of what I'm reading here, is that there's a bunch of people who, when they use these AI tools, aren't gathering or gaining experience, which turns them into the person that can actually make these executive decisions. What are they going to do? Seniors will be more senior. Juniors will be Darwin Award themselves with AI. That's, I think there's something about that. I'm also curious, like we don't talk about politics in this channel, and rightly so, because politics is extremely annoying. But I'm curious what this is going to do to also the political landscape. As people don't engage in critical thinking, will they continue to be even less engaged with critical things, and you only get people that are more and more connected with emotional touch, as opposed to actually some sort of, what's it called? As opposed to some sort of intellectual touch, as far as politics or world stuff going on. I'm curious what that's going to do. Can it get lower? Oh, it can get much lower. Because like the reality is that most people, the biggest concern of their day is just like their day-to-day life, putting food on the table, the ability to take care of their kids, what's happening in their local area, right? They don't really have a big care about the world and all that. They really just care about their individual sense. Will that become even more diluted to the point where they don't really have a thought other than whatever is told? I don't know. Can they critically break out of whatever echo chambers they've found themselves in? Is that going to be is that really the big danger of this? Is that because we all find ourselves in echo chambers. Anybody who thinks themselves to be this like unbiased, actual above the source person that is able to evaluate the socio-economic, political scale well, and they're actually having 200 IQ takes, you're probably just in an echo chamber yourself. But like, how much more will it be easier to effectively be trapped in an echo chamber if you don't have, the consistent, repetitive process of practicing critical thinking, right? Unless you, I don't know. Just a thought. Is tribalism the future, I guess, is kind of like my kind of current takeaway from all this. Phoenix, thank you. All right. Companies celebrating AI productivity gains are unknowingly creating cognitively weaker teams. It is curious about that because this is kind of a big statement people say. I may disagree with this person. As much as you know me, I love to shit on AI. But I also, you got to give praise where praise is due. Maybe there's something else that happens here, which is perhaps the cognitive decline of doing these activities that people don't care about are replaced with a higher cognitive engagement on solving the theoretical problems that they will need to work on tomorrow. So can company A, if your job is to think of a new user experience for being able to buy foods better, instead of the act of making the foo experience, you're able to just think about what the foo experience should be and iterate on that quickly. Will the reduction in cognitive load by producing the actual boots on the ground product be a sufficient or good trade-off because you're able to think more about the process itself as opposed to the application of that process? Right. That's what everyone always says, right? This is kind of like the big argument for AI, which is it allows me more time to think about the problem as opposed to just solving the problems. And at least there's a lot of interest peaking in here. This is actually a really sweet article. I'm loving talking about this. I know we're already 1 hour into this video. This is going to be a very long video, and I have a good feeling like this is going to last a long time. But I love this stuff. I think it's super interesting. It's not understanding. Let's see. Hold on. I want to read this. I like what Old Man Judo has to say most of the time. Let's see. What makes you senior is the will to get deeper understanding. That's not what makes you senior. That's what gives you the ability to become senior. You can get that with AI assistance, but you ultimately need to understand things yourself. There's no replacement for that. Yeah. So, again, this is kind of one of those partial views on what makes somebody senior. It's not just understanding. One of the things that makes real seniors, people with 10 to 15 years of experience versus the people who pretend to be seniors, is that they have a wealth of information built into all their decisions automatically via experience. Yes, what makes you senior is the fact that you've been doing it for a long time, and you not only had this first part, but you've then applied that first part over the course of time. That's a senior. You can't do that at all if experience is locked in a box and you need to interact with it. That's very good. That's a really, really good way to put it. Right? Something, expert, beginner. Something, dude, true. I'm an expert beginner in many regards. I recognize my expert beginneriness. But this is very interesting. I don't think so. You have to do work to get better. The implementation of the idea is equally important. Is equally as important, if not more important, as the idea itself. I disagree with that. I disagree with this statement fundamentally, and what I mean by that is that the implementation truly does not matter. The thing that matters is, how does it perform? Is it good? Is it smooth? Or is it like this this experience I'm currently having with the PDF where it comes in like this? Like, this is a bad experience. We can all agree that this experience is horrifying. No, I don't want to see words come in slowly. I don't want to have to scroll to speed things up. That's insane. Right? Like, this is bad. This is a bad experience fundamentally. I don't care how it was written. This is bad. So, is the implementation of that good or bad? I don't think it matters, right? I don't care about the implementation. I care about the outcomes. So if it's not smooth, if it doesn't solve the problem well, I don't care if you wrote it in one big-ass function. Balatro. Balatro is game of the year material. It is fantastic. It is a lot of fun. Absolutely think it just is one of my favorite games of all time to play. And guess what? This thing has a 10,000 line long if function that runs the main loop that does everything. Does that matter that there's a 10,000 line function in here that's just horribly written, that's absolutely awful? Some would argue that this is one of the worst written games of all time. And I would argue that this is one of the funnest games of all time. So, do implementation matter? For me, it matters because I'm the one that has to maintain it. Yes. But does it matter to you, the person who uses it? No. Just throwing it out there. It matters in a certain light, but it does not matter for everybody, right? But as far as vocabulary goes, I mean, it's hard for me to say that vocabulary is because of doom scrolling. You can doom scroll and see a lot of really great, words being used. I don't think there is some sort of exclusive claim to destroying vocabulary as doom scrolling is. I'm not sure what hurts or does not hurt vocabulary. So I do want to say that I don't know if this is true or not, but people are celebrating this. I think that the best takeaway you can have personally is that if you're a big AI super maxer, right? I think a good thing that you should do is that you should have allotted time for where you don't use it and try to critically solve things yourself. You're always gaining, you're always pursuing, you're always using those mental faculties to the maximum. You're not offloading it onto something that can just auto-generate stuff. I think that that's probably really good for you. I'm not saying that you should or should not vibe code. I'm not saying you should or should not write your emails with the use of AI. I think that these kind of these one-dimensional absolute statements are not good. But setting aside time to exercise is good. Setting aside time to sleep well is good. So I would assume that setting aside a time to practice and hone, sharpen that axe, as they say, is probably a good thing to do. Right? Employees become dependent on tools they can't live without. Yeah, is this bad? Really? Is that bad? Is that a bad thing? How do I turn off highlights in Vim? Here. All right. Let's go to package. Let's go to package. Let's go to V2. Let's go to args. And let's go to args go. Okay, people, let's just start doing some typing here. What should we add? All right, I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm pretty addicted to tools, because I look at this and I go, I don't want to do that, right? As somebody who has a bit of that old dyslexia, highlighting of words is actually really, really nice. Which, by the way, I do want to throw this out there. I've been working a lot on my Dream AI workflow. Are you guys ready for this? Oh, hold on. I actually have to leave this and open it up this way. Boom. Split it, open code. I could start doing vibe coding here whilst doing real programming here. Oh, we don't like that one? Here, I'll just open it up into I could open it up into a full server. Oh, why isn't it opening? Hey, I'm closing it. You can see it opening and then crashing for a second. Oh no, I've done something wrong. I've broken it. Oh no. But I can still do the half-Z's versus the full-Z's. Anyways, classic demo, I know, the moment I want to show you. Anyways, pretty cool, right? I like that kind of stuff. Anyways, long-term effects of behavior is real. Just like anyone that has ever formed any form of addiction. All the people out there right now in my chat that are porn addicts and don't really consider themselves porn addicts, you've developed a form of thinking. You have rituals, you have execution, and you have this in your life, and your brain will even start gearing towards it. You are incapable of not producing addictions. You can become addicted to not wanting to think hard. It is just as easily able to be as porn or drinking coffee or using illicit substances. They're literally all addictive. And so I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, when you have to do stuff yourself, are you finding yourself becoming incapable of producing your own work? I would say that if over time the outcome of using AI is the inability to produce your own work, you should be very scared, and you should really pursue and make sure you set aside time to perform your own independent thinking, your own ability to actually kind of like formulate and process problems yourself. Not thinking hard can be a habit. Why not? Why can't it be a habit, right? There's a classic saying, neurons that fire together wire together. If every single time you sit down at your computer, you just default to using the LLM, guess what's going to happen? When you sit down, your brain is going to pre-start turning off. It's going to pre-start, like, this is just like a super normal things that humans do. And this is why I review code better on GitHub than I do in my own editor. Why? Because I've built up this really weird habit of when I go to GitHub, it's code review time. I look at my own code in my editor with the differences, and I go, oh, yeah, okay, this all looks good. I take that same diff, I put it onto Stash or GitHub or whatever you use, and I go, whoa, I'm an idiot. This is stupid. Okay, whoa, this is an idiot, right? Like, I just totally miss the entire point when I'm in my editor, because my editor, that's for crafting. GitHub is for reviewing. So if you don't think that every single time you sit down, you enter a specific room, you do a specific activity, you're not training your brain to act in a specific way, you're insane. I will program faster and better on an airplane than I will in my office. Because when I'm on an airplane, I have nothing I can do, and I built a habit of, there's one thing I'm going to do, build Vim tools. And I just jump in and I'm like, it's Vim time, and I just build Vim UIs every single time. This one right here, what is it? Dashboard. What did I call you? Dashboard. This thing was all built on an airplane. I couldn't Google. I couldn't do anything. We were flying over the ocean, and I had no stuff, but I could build it all, and it was great. And adding buttons is really easy and all that. It was fun because this is what I've trained myself to do. This is who I am. You know what I mean? It's like, that's what I like doing that. What if you forget loop syntax on an airplane? Again, I hate that. It's just such a stupid thing to say, and I'm not trying to dog on you, but dog, if you forget how to write a for loop, you're either brand new or you've put in so low effort. You're like that kid that reads the Cliff Notes and then tries to talk in class about stuff. You're like that kid that when you walked in and you saw a picture of a guy looking at you and it says Big Brother is watching you, and it's all supposed to be about reading 1984 in high school, and you go, who's Big Brother? And it's 2 weeks into reading 1984. You're the one that looks like a jackass because everybody knows you have read nothing, okay? That's what happens. So if you can't memorize a for loop, you're just being dumb. I guarantee you there's not a person on this planet that does not have sufficient mental deficiencies that can't memorize a for loop. My mom, if she had to, could memorize how to do a for loop. It is not something that requires any effort at all. You have to write it, and that's it. I just hate that. I hate that thing. For loop was an oversimplification. Then what is it? There's no amount of syntax you should forget. Okay? You are just programming. And if you forget syntax, or if you forget things about maybe the API, remember, you have an autocomplete. The autocomplete's going to tell you what's happening. Oh, I can't remember how to join a string together. I know it's in the table thing. Oh, what could it be? Oh, look at that. It's right there. I can just look it up. I can go and look it up. So you have no excuses. If you have docs in your editor and you know the syntax, you can't stop. Prime, I feel attacked. Just stop having, I just hate that take. This is not even the hard part about programming. Learning to program is not the hard part about programming. It's building complex systems that is the hard part, right? And if you don't have an LSP, I guarantee you probably know the language better. It's just like stop with the terrible argument. Right? That's not the hard part. There's nothing hard about it. Learning recursion requires no new syntax understanding, and learning recursion is harder than learning the syntax by a country mile. Right? Anyways, I know you guys, I can see chat moving real fast, and they're just like, wait a second. All I read right here, sorry, I'm not going to read your whole thing. I just see I'm 18, working for 4.5 years, and I'm thinking, man, this guy has been doing so much. And then he says, web dev actually sucks. And it just is funny. That this whole statement, I haven't even read the whole thing. I just love that idea. Been doing it. I'm 18. It sucks. It's just like, man, even the 18-year-olds are starting to figure out that it sucks. That's crazy. MIT researchers call this cognitive debt, likely technical debt, but for your brain. Every shortcut you take with AI creates interest payments in lost thinking ability. Just like financial debt, the bill eventually comes due. I'd be surprised if that's their takeaway. Again, I think the whole neurons that fire together, wire together, you just build habits, and it's hard to break habits. It's hard to develop habits. Some habits are easier to develop because they kind of like, they go towards your primal instinct. Perhaps one of the more concerning findings is that participants in the LLM to brain group repetitively focused on a narrower set of ideas, as evidenced by the Ngram analysis. Courage, forethought, and perfect. Okay, blah, blah, blah. And supported by interview responses. The repetition suggests that many participants may not have engaged deeply with the topic or critically examined the material provided by the LLMs. When individuals fail to critically engage with the subject, their writing might become biased and superficial. This pattern reflects the accumulation of cognitive debt, a condition in which repeated reliance on external systems like LLMs replace the effortful cognitive processes required for independent thinking. Yeah, I think that's because really deep thinking in some sense is painful like exercise, if that makes sense. It's painful like exercise, but for some weird, odd reason, exercising can become also kind of pleasurable in some odd sense. Not like in the literal sense, like, oh man, it feels really good. It's just like, no, there's something about it that's good. But it's also just tiring, right? It's stressful and difficult. Yes, it's stressful and difficult, but there's also this odd good thing about it. So I would never call exercising the brain's good. Also, exercising is good for the brain, which is crazy. I hate creating boring documentation. Yeah. Yes. Do you have any advice for people that deal with reoccurring self-doubt about their abilities as a program to solve complex problems? Have you solved a complex problem? If you've solved a complex problem in the past, then you can do it. 56! Oh, gosh, you got me. I'm just asking him. He's saying that. Small moves. You don't eat an elephant in one bite. The thing about self-doubt and all that, I'm just gonna be real with you. If you struggle with a lot of self-doubt about your abilities, you're honestly too prideful. Okay? I know it hurts a little bit. Stop being so prideful, okay? You're not God's gift of stupidity to the world. You're likely not that unique comparatively, mentally speaking, than other people. You don't have to focus on yourself constantly. You can just focus on the problem and solve the problem. You don't have to think about yourself in the situation. And every single day, you just go in and you solve the problem. And this weird magical thing happens. You get better at solving problems when you solve the problem. I disagree. I'm uniquely average. I'm the most unique average person ever. I mean, the reality is most of us, we exist somewhere in the middle of the bell curve here, okay? I don't know where I'm at in the so-called bell curve, and I honestly don't even think it really matters how, I'm not really sure if there's a huge meaningful difference between someone who's super smart and someone who's not all that smart when it comes to thinking through problems and solving. There's a certain level of problem that just requires a very intense intelligence, but let's just face it, most problems you solve as a programmer do not fall into this super intelligent category, right? It just doesn't, right? You're not solving general relativity in your brain before the advent of computers when you're Albert Einstein, right? That's not you. That's not who you are. You're not having an apple fall on your head and being like, vector physics, right? That's not what's happening. You're not inventing new branches of mathematics. You're centering a button with tailwind, which is literally you just saying the word center, right? crazy. Okay, you're not even writing Tailwind. You're not implementing Tailwind. You're just writing it. You think so? I feel like more brain RAM and clock speed is a massive advantage to problem-solving activities like coding. Could be. I think familiarity is also just gigantic, right? If you're really familiar with something and you've done it enough times, you don't have to have immediate short-term. Like, I do agree that immediate short-term memory is a great thing, but you can also train that. That's like you can learn to hold more memory, like numbers in your head. You can hold more things in your head in the middle. But familiarity with something, like actual rote memory and memorizing, like I guarantee you, someone who knows Tailwind super well, Adam.dev, you get him to start just writing Tailwind, he just knows how to do it. He can just run really, really fast. He doesn't have to hold a bunch of shit in his head. He already knows it all. It's not some magical thing in his head that he has to hold. It's not some sort of short-term memory hold-up thing. He just already has worked with it a bunch and has a bunch of experience, and he can just crush it. All right, anyways, because session 4 of the study revealed something interesting. People with strong cognitive baselines show higher neural connectivity when using AI than chronic users. I think we can all agree. I think this is like inherently obvious that if you practice a bunch without using AI and then for a specific problem you use it as an enhanced search engine to get through what you need, that makes a lot of sense that it just works easier. Agreed. Right? But chronic AI users forced to work without it, they perform worse than people who have never used AI at all. Again, also not surprising. You kind of have to, dude, the problem is this. It's the same problem with every single tutorial you ever take. There's a thing in tutorials that happen that is super dangerous, right? So in a tutorial, when someone writes a tutorial, they write it like this. They first create a bunch of examples. And in those examples, each one of these examples they created, they made the first one said, ooh, I don't want to publish this one because it's not good enough. I think I can do it better. So they rewrite it and redo it. Ooh, and they ran into a bunch of these different problems. And they go, okay, I got to redo this. And then they do it again, and they do it again, and they do it again. And at the very, very end, you get instead this really, really nice, like boxed present that's just absolutely beautiful, because it actually is the culmination of somebody doing a whole bunch of iterations, and then you follow a tutorial that skipped out on, oh, remember that one error you got right here? Or you already solved that. You don't have to worry about that. Or remember that other error and that weird kind of design issue that you were going in right there? Well, we already skipped all of that. You're just getting the final product, which is the exact same thing as using an AI, right? You're just getting the final product. You missed out on the entire experience. This right here isn't the thing that mattered. This was the tutorial. This is just the answer. This is the multiple choice right here. And so it's not surprising that if all you've ever done is the multiple choice and now you're asked to do this, that's hard. Also, a good fun side activity, if you want to really know if you know something, try teaching it. Try even writing a tutorial on it. And you'll realize there's so many things you start fixing and you start researching. You go, oh gosh, I don't even know about this. Oh, I better start looking at this. Oh my gosh. Okay. I better do that. Right? Teaching is a great way to learn. Exactly. Because it forces you to ask questions that you probably haven't asked, that you've always just assumed you've understood. Anyways, I look at the same thing. So when people say that, oh yeah, people who've only ever used AI to code, when you take it away, they completely struggle. It's like, yeah, of course. I mean, perfect. That makes sense, right? When I removed Copilot for a while, when I removed Copilot for the last year, there was a couple things in Lua that I just didn't know, and so it took me a moment to get back up to speed. I now have Super Maven on, and I'm happy about it, and so it's just like, I'm okay turning things off and on. It doesn't really bother me, right? Leave my training wheels alone, right? The solution isn't to ban AI. It's to use it strategically, but the choice is yours. Building cognitive debt or becoming an AI dependent. Or, again, I'm not even sure if AI dependent is bad. I still haven't even made up my mind if AI dependent is bad. I don't know. Our grandmothers cook without recipes because they understood cooking. Programmers take lessons from this. It's an interesting way of putting it, right? This was actually really great. Some of the things that he pulled out of this, because this study is obviously 100 and some pages, and so it's pretty difficult to be able to go through and actually come to all the right, or to even see a lot of this. So this was pretty awesome. Very happy. This study is super, super interesting. We've now read a little bit of it. Very cool. Very awesome. I'm glad that this is coming out, but part of me just finds this also to be a complete... Okay, there's this thing that does piss me off about, and I think this is especially high in people who do thought work, that you can't believe anything or you can't think through anything, or you can't ideate anything without some sort of data to back up your opinion. Every time you think through something, people are always like, where's the proof? Where's the study that shows it? It's just like, do you really need a study for everything? Is using your brain less going to make it harder to use your brain in the future? Like, do I need a brain scan to answer that question? Do we always need a source for everything, or can you just kind of think through things and go, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, because when I stop working out, it's hard to work out. Like I get in pain. Like, do you but it's just this like constant thing we do where it's just like a refusal. And it's I think John Lennox of Cambridge, I believe Cambridge, head of math at Cambridge, he writes this really cool phrase, which is a bachelor makes an atheist, because people who are high into the PhD levels and people who are high school and less have about the same rate of believing in God. The peak happens right around bachelor, because you have just enough science to think you're smart, but you're not actually smart. And so you have this weird, smug idea about how the whole world exists. And the bell curve meme is literally at the Bachelor of Science. And that's what a lot of us are. A lot of programmers tend to be in the Bachelor of Science area. So we have this like, yeah, I know best. But actually, no, you don't know. I don't know. We often are just thinking we're super smart, but we just have just a very cursory glance of life. And so there's just this kind of unique thing that happens among specifically bachelor people, is that we have the worst view. Faith is not science. No, I mean science requires faith just like anything else. I mean, all things require some amount of the ability to believe things. I forget what the phrase is, but it's just like science makes you forces you to make one great leap. I forget the exact thing. I'll have to go look that up again. It's a very interesting read about like the origins in the beginning, and you have to come up with ideas and you have to do that. But you know, you still, there's still some belief at all times. It's just how it is, because you still have to accept people's papers that they write. Like, how often have we had papers come out that turns out everything they've done is completely fabricated? There's a lot to it, and it's peer reviewed. Things aren't as straightforward in life as people sometimes make it. I also like believing in things, right? But that's not religious faith. Why isn't it religious faith to believe that? You just don't know what the word religious means. And I'm not even quite convinced you even know what faith means. I'm not quite sure you understand what either of those two words mean, but you're using them in such ways. All right, hey, the name is the Primogen.